Men's graduated layer recap. Sides and back. Partings and sections move from horseshoe into diagonal back. Distribution is 90 degrees. Elevation is also 90 degrees. And the cut is vertical graduation. Top. Partings and sections move from a profile into a horizontal. Distribution moves from 90 degrees into over-directed. Elevation moves from 90 degrees into over-directed. And the cut is square. Personalizing is an essential part of the Toni & Guy philosophy. Texturizing techniques are used to adapt classic shapes to suit the individual. On the last video in this series, we introduced techniques such as point cutting, slicing, brick cutting, and razoring, which expand the classic portfolio to accommodate all lengths and textures of hair and allow the stylist to develop their creativity for the benefit of the client. The textured crop combines a scissor over comb technique with a textured interior. A horseshoe section is taken from the crown through to the high recession. With the head upright, starting at the back, the hair is held at 90 degrees. Holding the fingers parallel to the horseshoe section, the hair is point cut to a suitable length. In this case, 1 finger's depth. The technique is repeated around the head through to the sides. Check balance. Horseshoe sections are repeated above the round of the head. Each one is combed to natural fall, elevated to 45 degrees, and point cut onto the block graduation guideline. This technique is continued around the head until all the hair that reaches the guideline has been cut. A profile section is taken from the crown through to the front hairline. Starting at the front, the hair is combed to 90 degrees and point cut to follow the head shape. This profile section is extended down behind the crown. It is combed to 90 degrees and point cut, rounding to the head shape. Pivoting radial sections are continued around the crown, combing and point cutting at 90 degrees. Keeping the profile section in place, across the top, the hair is sectioned horizontally. The section is combed to 90 degrees and point cut square from the profile to the round of the head. Working forward, horizontal sections are continued and the technique repeated. The last section is over-directed back to maintain squareness through the front hairline and to allow for the recession area. Check balance. The hair is dried, and then the scissor over comb technique is used, starting in the centre back of the hairline and worked up to the block graduation guideline. Using the wide teeth of the comb, this technique is repeated around the back of the head through to the sides, keeping the comb parallel to the hairline and working against the direction of growth. The perimeter is detailed with a barbering comb, using the scissor over comb technique in the same way. hair on the neck is removed with the points of the scissors, maintaining the natural hairline shape. The front hairline is personalised further with point cutting. The hair is power dried. Here, the hair has been coloured using a shoe shine technique. This can be viewed on our classic colouring series. The corners are texturised further with point cutting. A finishing product is applied to emphasize the texture. Textured crop recap. Above horseshoe. Partings and sections move from a horseshoe into profile, into pivoting radials, and back through into horizontal. Distribution is 90 degrees to over-directed. Elevation moves from 45 degrees into 90 degrees into over-directed. And the line is point cut square. Below horseshoe, the scissor over comb technique is used. Personalising is an essential part of the Toni & Guy philosophy. Texturising techniques are used to adapt classic shapes to suit the individual. On the last video in this series, we introduced techniques such as point cutting, slicing, brick cutting and razoring, which expand the classic portfolio to accommodate all lengths and textures of hair and allow the stylist to develop their creativity for the benefit of the client. Point cutting uses the tips of the scissors to create a textured edge and a grown-in feel. Here it is shown in layering. On a mid-length perimeter, and a longer length. Point cutting can also be used with a filtering method to detail graduation. A variation of point cutting is deep parallel point cutting, where the whole length of the blade is used. Generally, it is worked as a detailing technique on dry hair to reduce weight without reducing length. Once again, this can be used on the interior or the perimeter. The slicing technique is used to create a looser, more seamless feel. The scissors are placed into the section of hair and sliced from the inside out as the scissors grip the hair shaft. If the blades are kept stationary, less hair is removed. It can be used to visually blend lengths and colour and create perimeter edges. Used on dry hair, the technique creates a more subtle effect. The depth of the slicing can be controlled by the angle of the scissor blade. Different results can be achieved according to the hair density. This technique was used extensively in the Toni & Guy Raw collection. Slide cutting can be used to visually blend short to longer lengths. The blades are slowly closed as they slide down the hair shaft, as opposed to cutting. This minimises the removal of length and weight. It can be used on the perimeter, generally around the face. The method can also be used internally. The channeling technique is used to create more definite separation. It differs to slide cutting or slicing, as a cutting action is used as the scissors work through the hair. It can be used subtly to visually blend lengths, colour, and perimeter shapes, or more dramatically, for an extreme removal of weight, as seen in this cut from Toni & Guy's On the Edge collection. Brick cutting is used on hair with more natural movement or curl. The tips of the scissors are used to cut into the hair following a brickwork pattern to systematically remove weight. This will create more separation through the hair without obvious layering. Twist cutting is used in a similar way to brick cutting to reduce weight internally. Again used on hair with more natural movement. The section of hair is twisted and the scissors are used to randomly cut into the surface. The benefit of using these techniques is to minimize damage to the cuticle layer. The edging technique creates a frayed texture. A single blade is used with a razoring action, working with the direction of the cuticle. It can be used on the perimeter or internally to reduce weight and increase movement. Back cutting creates a similar texture to edging, generally used internally on wet or dry hair to create foundation shapes or detail. The scissors work against the direction of the cuticle in a similar way to back combing to create maximum texture to each individual strand. This will give more volume and versatility. This technique was used extensively in the Toni & Guy Cuts with Perspective collection. Cutting with the razor creates a shattered internal texture. Classic sectioning patterns may be used, but the change of tool gives a much looser feeling. A controlled scooping action is used, which helps maintain a balanced shape. The razor can also be used to detail perimeter edges. Here, the tool is used on a shorter length to maximize texture.